The world champion Ding Liren comes strolling into the tournament hall. He's taking on the India number 1 Arjun Erigaisi. Now the Chinese team generally sits on the far end of the hall, the Decade China team, and that's the reason why Ding Liren is going in that direction. But suddenly he finds that maybe his team isn't there. See, there is some other team which is sitting on that podium, and so he has to find his way, and the game is about to begin, and there's a big swarm of journalists gathering around the board, and Ding runs to the board as the game has just begun. He is up against Arjun Erigaisi. This is going to be a cracker of a clash. Ding takes his seat, and let's see what he plays. He opens the game with 1d4. And he hasn't pressed the clock. That's the reason why Arjun is not making his move. Puts the queens on the other side and presses the clock. Arjun goes d5. We have the queen's gambit with c4. It's very interesting that Arjun gets to play against Ding here, because very soon we'll have the world championship match where Gukesh will be taking on Ding, and this is a kind of the Indian youngsters getting to face the world champion. Of course, that being said, knight d7, slightly tricky move, not developing the knight on f6 first, but keeping his options open, now bringing the knight to f6. I mean, Arjun is already higher rated than Ding in classical chess. Bishop b4, we have the Ragozin on the board now, and Ding takes on d5, takes back with the pawn. And one of the things that has happened to Ding Liren in this tournament is that he seems to be regaining his form. He hasn't lost a single game yet. When he was facing Arjun, knight to e4 played by Arjun, trying to get it sharp, and generally in such positions, g5, h5, g4, h4, all these are very, very common moves, and so Ding very quickly wants to get rid of this knight on e4. Arjun takes on d2. And he takes back with the queen. The knight comes to f6, and now the knight is threatening to come to e4. Not that it's a big threat as such, so Ding can actually just play pawn to e3, but he could also go pawn to f3. He can also play a3. There are many possibilities. He goes pawn to e3, and now Arjun places the bishop on f5, and in a way Arjun has kind of solved the opening problems for black, because the light squared bishop is generally the problem piece for the queen's gambit. Queen takes, and now there's queen b5 check, picking up the bishop, so you have to be slightly careful here. Arjun stops it with the move c6. Now white castles, and Arjun can also castle it out here. Yes, he also plays short castles, and Ding very quickly asks the question to the bishop. The bishop comes back to e7, so that's a small fighting kind of a decision, because he could have also taken on c3, he could have also played bishop d6, but he went bishop e7. Ding goes bishop g5, a5 played to stop the queenside expansion with b4. And Ding takes, bishop takes, and now you can play b4. I believe it's not at all a bad idea to do this, but Ding Liren plays knight a4. It's a battle between the knight and the bishop. Knight to c5, and if you take here, this is, I would say, slightly easier to play as white here because of this b4 b5 minority attack plan. Queen c7 played by Arjun. He's not going to give up his bishop easily. He has some possibilities here on the king side with bishop d6, trying to push h pawn down the board. He does play bishop d6, g3 played by Ding, and Arjun fixes the structure on the queen side with a4. Rook c3 played. Maybe next idea is to go queen c2 to attack the pawn on a4. And rook a5 played. The queen comes to c2, putting pressure here. Well, you can take here, but then maybe rook takes c5 and the position remains equal. So Arjun goes rook a8 and king g2 played. g6 played by Arjun. The game is developing calmly. Maybe Ding has an idea to push e4 at some point, because black's pieces have slightly been sidelined in the position. But queen e7, Arjun is remaining centralized. He's aware of what's happening. Ding goes rook c1. And now king comes up to g7. Queen goes back to d1. He plays his pawn to h5. Ding plays h4. You can see Ding Liren making some quick decisions there. Not playing very ambitiously, but also not making any errors. Rook a7. Queen c2 played. It's very difficult for both sides to make progress here. If you try to kick the knight away with b6, then the c6 pawn gets weakened. If you want to go g5, your h5 pawn gets weak. So both players just moving back and forth here. Maybe Ding can play queen c2, but he comes back knight d3, showing some intention to fight. Rook b5. Very interesting. Queen comes to f3. And now Arjun plays rook a6. He wants to double down the b file, putting pressure here. Rook c2. And yes, rook b6. There's pressure on the b2 pawn, but it's not at all easy to win it because the knight defends it. King comes to f1. Rook b3. He takes. Pawn takes would weaken the position, and also you want to keep the b2 pawn as a weakness. So rook takes makes a lot of sense here. Well, Arjun is seriously thinking in this position because ab3, rook c1. It feels like white has slightly better chances here. So that's the reason why it's better to take with the rook. And finally, after quite some thought, Arjun is down to 2 minutes. Because rook takes b3 would attack the knight and also keep the pressure here. And maybe if you can then swing your queen over, that would be something. On the other hand, you don't want to weaken your king side a lot. He goes with the rook, knight c1, very quickly played by Ding. Rook goes back. And he brings his knight to e2. He rook to b3, knight comes back, and this is some kind of a tacit draw for here. Will Arjun accept it, or will he go for more? Because Arjun can continue playing, he can go rook back, then queen f6, offer the trade, bring his king here to d7, maybe then try for b6, c5. So there are certain possibilities for sure. He comes back rook b6, knight to e2. So Ding is ready, I guess. Arjun just making sure that he does not have something very concrete idea here before planning to repeat the position. And he goes rook b3, and Ding now starts to look at the other boards. He gets up and sees the boards of his other team members, whether he should continue playing or not. And I think he has been satisfied by the fact that his other team members are doing pretty okay So knight c1 and they agree to a draw. Quite a solid game. I think Arjun can be happy with this, but also Ding can be happy. And there they are discussing a takes b3 instead of rook b3. For Ding, this tournament continues to be a very solid one and his path back to being what he was a couple of years ago.